As writers, we are endlessly curious. We want to know the secret to writing unforgettable characters, to writing wonderful plots, and how to finish that elusive first draft. So we sign up for classes, we go to workshops, we attend talks by authors in libraries and universities. Some end up being really good and exactly what we needed, and then others end up not being exactly very helpful. After years of sitting in lecture halls, university classes, Zoom workshops, I've pretty much seen it all. And what I've discovered is that there are 7 types of writing classes, and some are better than others. So what I've decided to do is to break it down from probably the most worthless. I mean, nothing's completely worthless, but just the ones that aren't as good to the best life-changing type of writing classes. So I'd like to share those with you today.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Amante. I'm a women's fiction author. I am here on Fridays to give you some advice to help you to write your stories. What I'd like to begin with is, again, probably the least helpful type of class, at least the kinds that I've taken. And so again, nothing is completely worthless. Just keep that in mind, but the least helpful. And the first one is the grammar refresher type of class. Now, I'm a complete geek. I'm also an English instructor. So I love these type of classes. But did they help me to become a better writer and to create my first novel? No, absolutely not. In fact, when I first started writing, I was already a teacher. I was teaching elementary school at the time. I mean, so it's not that I didn't know anything about grammar, but I wasn't an expert. Like I hadn't had a grammar class in a long time. I'd had some very basic English classes in college, but I hadn't had grammar classes. So when I went later on to get my MFA, I decided I want to take some grammar classes. I want to really understand everything, the sentences, and I want to understand it all. Well, again, I loved it, but it didn't help me to write better. So I wasn't writing a better story. I'm not writing a better story today after taking all those grammar classes than I did 25 years ago when I wrote my first story. There's things that I've learned along the way about creating more tension or better sentences, but this has nothing to do with grammar or where the commas are. So should you take a grammar refresher course? Sure, if you want to learn more about grammar just because you're interested in it and because you find it helpful and because it just gives you more confidence as a writer to know like what you're writing and why it works. And so if there are, I will put actually a couple of places that you can go and you could take a grammar refresher class. But on the scale of 1 to 7, I would say this is the least important one for you as an author. Okay, and then the second type of writing class that is, again, better than the grammar one, but still not that great. And these are the just write type of lectures. Now, they're good maybe for inspiration. So for years, I belonged to Romance Writers of America. I used to belong to a local chapter. I would go once a month. They would have authors, all types of authors that from all types of the romance genres that would come, and then they would either talk about their background and their career and try to give you some kind of tip. So this was like the lunch hour speaker. And so they were pep talks and kind of sprinkled with little anecdotes. And as much as I enjoyed them, I can't say that it was helpful for me as a writer. So I would leave these workshops or, lunch and lectures and go home. And yeah, I was maybe a little inspired, but when I sat down at my computer, I wasn't a better writer than I was when I left there, when I got there. And to be fair, these were not designed to teach me techniques or to teach me to teach me how to become a better writer. But if you are looking for something practical to learn how to write, these type of lectures by famous authors really aren't that helpful. It's worth listening to, but don't expect your writing to be transformed in any way. Okay, the next one, of course, we're getting better and better, is the critique only workshop. So these are the kind where you bring your work, you bring your pages to a critique workshop, and they're usually like 1-day workshops where there'll be somebody, a teacher, an author who will teach you how to critique, and everybody will bring their pages, everybody will critique each other's work. And the idea is that you're learning by hearing other people be critiqued, right? So you might only spend 15, 20 minutes on your own story, but you're hearing other people's stories be critiqued and you're learning like, well, what did this person do right? What did they do wrong? How do other people feel about what this person wrote? So these type of workshops do feel productive because it feels like you're actually working on your manuscript. They may say things like, hey, your pacing is too slow, or somebody else may say, well, actually, no, it's too fast. So it may be a little helpful and motivating to get you to go home and start working on your paper, your book. But a lot of times it's a little demoralizing as well. So I kind of put this higher on the negative side than on the positive side. But again, nothing is completely useless. So if you're looking for a critique type of workshop, then you might want to try it and see if it's helpful. Okay, number 4 is the celebrity masterclasses. So I'm sure you've seen this. It's actually titled Masterclass. Wonderful. I subscribed to one for an entire year, and I listened to Patterson and Amy Tan, I think. There were Malcolm Gladwell. There were all kinds of authors. Of course, I listened to all the authors first, and then when I was finished listening to the authors, and I thought, well, how about listen to some cooking one's experts. And so the fun part about this is, of course, you're listening to master writers. You're listening to people who have written multiple books, and they're fun to watch because you want to hear from these famous authors. Margaret Atwood was another one that I listened to and I really enjoyed. And so, yeah, you may pick up some little nuggets of wisdom from them that you could use for your book. But what I realized, not from watching the authors, because as I was watching the authors, as an author myself, I thought, well, this is interesting, and some of the things they said, I was nodding my head, and I thought it was helpful. But then when I started watching the cooking shows, I realized that no matter how many of these cooking show chefs, famous chefs I watched, although it was interesting and I may pick up a little skill or two, I wasn't going to become a master chef by watching these little short videos. It just wasn't enough information. It was interesting, but it wasn't going to make me really a better cook. And so I started thinking that, possibly these master classes really aren't making beginning writers better writers either. Now, the next one is number 5, the weekend boot camp. Now we're getting somewhere. Okay, so now you're spending a whole weekend writing and being in a situation where you have no distractions, right? So you're there in a weekend, sometimes in a cabin or a place where there are no distractions. You can really focus on your writing, and other people too. Other people are writing, because sometimes there's critiques that are part of these boot camps. But the great thing is that for that weekend, nothing else matters except your story. And there are different kinds of these boot camps. Some of them have exercises that you can do, and and that's great. And there's lectures, and you can take notes. So it comes with a lot of different things. There are exercises, there's lectures, there's time for you to write and work on your own book. So typically you will leave one of these workshops and you will feel really fired up. So you'll go home and you're like, this is wonderful. I got to work on my story. I got all these exercises done. I've learned how to build a backstory for my character. I've taken all kinds of notes. So you're excited. And so the excitement lasts for a little while. And slowly the momentum starts to fade. And the exercises that were really exciting, it's like, okay, well, what did I really learn from this? I learned some things that I can apply to my story, some things I can't, I'll save for later. And you may or may not ever come back to that. So it's a great spark. It's really great to get you going again. But what it lacks is the momentum for you to maintain that momentum after the excitement has worn off. I realize this a lot of times when I go to writers' workshops. I used to go to, again, the RWA, Romance Writers of Americas, would have their annual, and you'd go and listen to tons of different speakers, and I'd come home and I'd be super excited. The excitement would last a little while, and then afterwards I would say, what did I learn? I'd go back to my notes, and it just wasn't the same excitement. But these are pretty good, and I do recommend them. And again, I will list down at the bottom in the description a few that you might be interested, that might be, that you might want to check out. Some of them are online, some of them you have to go to. Okay, number 6 is the MFA program. Now, why is this so high? Well, because I do think MFA programs make you a better writer. Now, it depends on the kind of writer that you want to be. So if you want to be a literary writer, MFAs are fantastic because they are geared to producing literary writers. I was already a published author when I went to get my MFA, and so it wasn't as helpful for me because I was already a published author. And I found that what I was writing, commercial fiction, isn't really loved by the university. So if that's what, and some students that were there, that's exactly what they wanted to do. So I don't know how helpful it was for them as far as that, but it was helpful as far as the different things that you're exposed to. You're exposed to different kinds of literature, different kinds of writing, literature classes, writing classes, workshops where you critique. So there's a variety of things that the students get to experience. And by the time they're done with 2 years of an MFA program, or 3 years, depending on how long it is, then when they leave, they actually are better writers. Most of them have had to produce a book. So depending on the MFA, so if it's a fiction MFA, they have to produce a fiction, a manuscript, an entire book that actually gets published. Or if you're a poet, of course, a book of poetry. But the thing is that they do actually do what they say they're going to do. They actually do complete a book. The bad thing about it is that it's expensive. So do you want to spend $25,000 to $60,000, which is what I spent, $60,000 on an MFA. Now, would I do this again? Yeah, definitely, because I didn't go to get an MFA to become a writer, even though, again, I think it does make better writers. I went there because I wanted to teach. So I wanted to teach my own college classes. And for that, I needed to have an advanced degree. So an MFA is a terminal degree. It allows me to teach university level. And so for me, it was a great thing to do. It was worth the money that I spent for it. But if your goal is to just write books, then is it worth spending thousands of dollars to get an MFA? Because publishers aren't impressed by MFAs. They're actually impressed by your stories and your books. So would I recommend it? If your dream is to teach creative writing, yes. If your dream is to write a book, probably not. Unless you need maybe hand-holding is not the right word, but if you need that to have to go to a class, to have to be told you have to do this, you have to produce a chapter for our critique session, it does keep you motivated because you have to go to class. You're expected by the professor to submit something, to do the work. So it can help you as far as that. You will finish your MFA program with a publishable book. So is that worth the thousands of dollars? I guess you'd have to decide that. I will list some MFA programs that you might want to consider. Okay, lastly, number 7, the one that I think is the best, is the life-changing one that will do all of the above, except for the grammar. It will do everything else that I mentioned. And that's a guided year-long program or multiple month program. Okay, so if you can find a program that lasts many months and goes over many things, then that would be the best thing for you to do. So what these classes will do is they'll give you the support. They'll give you the support, the structure, and the guidance that an MFA program will do. It's just not as long and not as expensive. They don't just drop tips and inspiration for a few hours or an hour and then tell you to go home and write. They actually walk you through the process of writing, of learning different skills, of learning characterization, of learning plotting. And I think that this is where the magic is, right? You're actually learning the skills, and then you're going back to your home, or you might, if you do it online, you're already home, but you're then going to your project and you're actually applying what you learned. So if you have a month of characterization, for example, then you can go to your novel, work on your novel. You can do some exercises. Some of them may give you exercises, and then apply that to your novel. But then it continues, right? So as they move on from, let's say, characterization to description or setting, you're still with that group. You can still say, I'm still struggling with characterization, and continue to work on that. I think these types of classes are life-changing and transformative, because they do go on and they do give you the support, and they also have some accountability where you are required to put in the time. So they're process-driven types of classes. They don't just teach you about writing, but they actually expect you to write and to have a finished book at the end. They're not going to grade you the way an MFA program, so it's not like you won't graduate if you don't complete your book. It's always up to you, of course, but it does give you that accountability. And you do know that you're going to have weekly lessons or monthly lessons, however the program does it. And I like it because it has a little bit of everything. It has the inspirational talks. It has the focus that a boot camp would have. It has the long-term depth and study of an MFA. So I think those are the types. They're also not as expensive as an MFA, so you have that benefit as well. So should you invest in writing classes? Absolutely. I invested, like I mentioned, into so many of them, and I took away something from all of them. If you only have a little bit of money, then you want to use what's best for you. What is it that you want? You might start with just some inspiration, then you might move on to learning skills. And again, you're going to get more skills in an actual class than you would get, for example, in a 15-minute YouTube video. As much as I tried to create something every week, it's only a little bit, and it's also very surface, right? Where if you were involved in a class, then you would get, of course, more depth and more instruction and more. You'd probably come away with more that you could use for your work, for your own book. So if you wanted to give yourself a gift, that would definitely be my recommendation, is to take classes, to go to workshops, and to continue to learn. And I think that's the most important thing, is that you want to continue to learn. I still do that. I still continue to learn. I still go to workshops. But depending on the level of writing, of where you are in your writing career, you might need more than inspiration. You might need actual skills. And for that, I do recommend some of these types of classes and workshops. So I hope that this has helped you, and that you found it interesting, and that if you have questions, definitely let me know, or comment what type of classes you have taken and how they've helped you, what kind of workshops you've attended, and what you've come away with. And maybe you've had a similar experience than I have, or maybe they've been different, but definitely I'd love to read about it. So leave a comment below and come back next week. Don't forget to like and share my video. And thanks again for being here. I'll see you again next week.